Okay, it's 11:05, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Alicia Melton, and welcome to Today in Black History. Each week, I will highlight a Black American achievement or a historical event. And today, I'm going to talk about the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse. So feel free. I know most of you are from the Black Archives, so feel free to respond to my questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. In 1944, Miami's black population had reached over 43,000, most living in the Central Negro District, formerly called Colored Town. Who can tell me what is the Central Negro District? I'm going to give you a few seconds. What is the Central Negro District? Good morning, the bubbly black girl. I'll repeat my question. I just started, so I'll uh, repeat it again. In 1944, Miami's black population had reached over 43,000, most living in the Central Negro District, formerly called Colored Town. What is the Central Negro District? So what does that comprise of? I'll say this, what areas is considered the Central Negro District? Good morning, Vessel. So those of you who just joined, today I'm talking about the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse. And my question that I just posed was, what is the Central Negro District? What areas does that comprise of? Yes, Vessel says Coconut Grove. Yes, part of Coconut Grove is one. Again, the other, thank you again, Liberty City and Overtown. Yes. So those areas are considered the Central Negro District, part of Coconut Grove, Liberty City, and Overtown. Thank you. The Negro Citizens League convinced the city that a black police presence was essential. On September 1st, 1944, 5 men made history when they were sworn in as the City of Miami first black police officers. And I'm going to say, at the time, their title was considered patrolmen. Before my reading, I'll say officers, but just keep in mind for historical purposes that when they were hired, their title was patrolmen. So, who can tell me who were the 5 men that was sworn in as the first black police officers? The first black Miami police officers. Good morning, Swamp Maid, Ep Queen. Oh, EB, what is that? EBK. I'm just going to say Ep Queen. Good morning. So those of you who just joined, today I'm talking about the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse. And I just posed a question about what areas considered the Central Negro District. And Veso was able to answer that for us, which was Overtown, Liberty City, and part of Coconut Grove. Now, I just mentioned about the 5 men who were hired to be the first Black police officers in Miami, in the city of Miami. Who can tell me the names of those 5 Black police officers? And it's okay if you don't know. I just want to see who does, and then I'll mention their names. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mention their names. Ralph White, John Millage, Clyde Lee. Oh, Vesso, no. You can answer. I'm not sure. If you're not part of the Black Archive staff, I think it's okay for you to go ahead and let us know, because no one has responded. So, no, go ahead if you know the answer of the 5 Black. Oh, okay. Okay, no. Okay, that's fine. I will say this. Okay, so I saw that he's the director at the museum. That's fine. But if we don't see any answers or responses down there, then go ahead, tell us. You could be my co-host today. You can assist me with this information. And as of right now, no one has said, well, I just mentioned the name, so I'll go ahead and continue with the names. So I'll start again with the first one. Ralph White, John Millage, Clyde Lee, Ed Kimball, and Moody Hall. All right. There were resistance of whites. So the training of the Black officers were achieved in secret at the Liberty Square Recreation Center. The newly created Black police force became a division independent of the white police force and first operated from the office of dentist Ira P. Davis. They did not have a headquarters, no cars, no radio contact. They policed by walking and riding bicycles. They were allowed to arrest only Black residents and had no authority over whites. 1 year later, the number of Black patrolmen had grown to 15. By the late 1940s, there were more than 40 Black officers, and the city decided that it was time to construct a separate facility. Okay, good morning. Okay, wait just a minute. Okay, so I just accepted, I believe it's Terrence, the director of the Black Police Precinct. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being my co-host today.
It just so happens I was up here letting the cleaning guys come in, and so it just so happens that you're talking about it today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. No.
So I'll show you those first 5 that you were just talking about. It's
okay.
Right,
yes. So what you're seeing there is the first Black 5, and it looks like that's where they're being sworn in, right?
Yes, that's where they're being sworn in front of, and I'll actually take you into that further so you can get an actual glimpse of that picture a little bit better, so you can actually see that a little bit better.
Okay. And I'm going to mention those five gentlemen again, because I think it's important that we understand during that time this was segregation and this was a historical achievement as well as showing their bravery um, of taking on this job and this responsibility. So the names are Ralph White, John Milledge. Am I saying John's last name?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Clyde Lee,
Mm-hmm.
Ed Kimball, and Moody Hall. And
Yeah.
this is, I think, the one, I'm not sure which one is dentist. What is the dentist's name? Ira P. Davis. Where can you point? Is he in there?
Yes, he's in the back. You rarely can
Okay.
see those glasses back there, but that's him right there in the back. This is actually his office, so when I go back up, you can see the picture, but I'll show you a better picture of him to help
Okay.
everyone out. And that's the gentleman right there.
Okay. So the photo right there is Dr. Ida P. Ira, I'm sorry, Ira
Ira.
P. Davis, Dr.
Yeah.
Davis.
And all of these photos are complimentary of the Black Archives. So we were actually able to acquire these because of the Black Archives.
Okay.
So
Good to
anyone
know.
who wants to see those pictures up close in person can come to the museum, or they can come to the Black Police Precinct, which is on the Black Archives on 2nd Ave.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So Terrence is going to be with us as I go through my reading and to fill in some of the gaps that I may not have. All right. So by the late 1940s, there were more than 40 Black officers, and the city decided that it was time to construct a separate facility. The building would serve as a headquarters for the officers and a courthouse where Black residents were tried for crimes with a Black judge presiding. The creation of the Special Black Municipal Court was a highly significant achievement that did much to provide equal treatment under the law. The Miami City Commission authorized the construction of a Black police precinct in August of 1949. Who can tell me, when did the Black precinct open? You can tell me the year, or if you know the exact date, let me know.
I won't show that.
I'm going to repeat it again. When did the Black police precinct and courthouse open? You can tell me the year, or if you know the actual date. I'll give you some time because I know sometimes there's like a delay in me seeing the responses. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and it was the May 22nd, 1950. Is that correct, Terrence?
That is correct. We're coming up on our 70th anniversary, and so 70 years, and so that is correct.
Okay. And the jail was on the first floor. The courtroom was on the second floor.
Yep. We just
Do you
left the
want
court.
to?
So this is the courtroom. I'll go back. So that's the courtroom. And he would roughly hear, have you gotten to the judge, the
Oh
Black
no,
judge?
I haven't got to. I'm gonna pose the question first, and then you could talk about it. So, who can tell me who was appointed to serve as judge? So I'll let a few. I'll see if anyone respond, and then you could go ahead and let us know, Terrence. But let me see if anyone knows who was the judge that was appointed. Okay, Terrence, I think you could go ahead.
So the first judge that was appointed to the City of Miami Black Police Courthouse was Judge Lawson Thomas, and he is right up there. And the second black judge, if you want to ask that question, maybe they didn't know the first one, maybe they know the second one.
Okay, who was the second black judge presiding?
So the second is the gentleman right underneath, which is Judge Johnson, who is also in this bus right here. And so that's Judge Johnson, was notably the second black judge, Bohemian. He was Bohemian born, and so he was the second black judge to preside here at the museum or at the precinct.
Okay. The City of Miami Police Department remained segregated from 1944 to 1963. The Black Precinct was closed in 1963. The Black officers moved to the main police headquarters to work together with white police officers. The precinct was abandoned for nearly 60 years, or I should say, the building was not utilized for 60 years. It was restored to its original condition and deemed a historic museum in September 2009. Terrence, do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
how that
so
came about?
so what happened? It actually was used in between that 60 years that it was dormant. Um,
Okay.
Oddly enough, it was used by the Community Action Agency for a daycare at one point. I'm not sure how that worked out with it being a jail. So you talked about the jail, and this is an actual view of that jail. So
Okay.
that's the actual real jail that's there. Um, so it actually was being used and it was designated out. And then at some point, it became a resource for a bottling company. I'm still looking in the research to that, how that happened. But yes, it became an actual museum when, do I have that picture up? When several retired officers, I do have that, several retired officers got together, and it was in this picture right here, which is in July of 2001, when the Miami Herald covered the story. But several retired police officers fought to secure the building. They had some challenges because they were not allowed to secure the building initially because it was the officers that were still on the force that wanted to preserve the building before it became a parking lot for the Jefferson Reeves Clinic, which is directly behind the museum or on 4th Street, 10th and 4th. So the retired officers decided they were going to go after it, spearheaded by one of our very own pioneers in the community. Um, uh, they actually, with Arthur Till, who was commissioner at the time, went to Arthur Till, Dr. Ingram, and went to Dr. Till, Arthur Till, commissioner, and they were able to secure the building. And so they then sought funding, thanks to, once again, the Black Archives and other historians coming together to seek federal funding. And they were able to secure, between Arthur Till and state funding, $500,000 grant.
Okay. So I want to ask the viewers, how many of you have visited the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum? And tell me what was your experience?
It's quite
Terrence,
interesting.
after we get some responses, and could you tell us, what you're doing today and some of your, your services and what you're doing once we get.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And if any of your viewers are on here, and even after on here, if they are able to respond to any of those questions or answer those questions that you've asked on this live, we will be gracious enough to give them free entry to the museum. So once we get back up and running, they can just send us an email and with those response questions, and we'd love to have them come over and tour with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have some that says awesome director, awesome museum.
It is. It's a great space. It is a great space. Yeah, it is. So you guys want to get a sneak peek at what I'm doing here?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So recently, during this COVID-19, I've been able to secure some um, for display. And so we have been working on telling the story of some of these letters that you see here, which highlight some very hard content. Some people might find it very disturbing, but it takes history from oral into written. And so one of the major letters that we kind of featured here at the museum, that we're kind of pulling the story out, is this one right here. So when your visitors come, they'll be able to see this letter. And this letter really goes really in deep on how blacks were viewed back in the early 1900s, 1940s. I won't read this letter live, but I do encourage your viewers to come and read it in person. It always sends a shock wave, because you actually see what was considered, as you mentioned in your presentation. Although this was a black police precinct, it was supervised by all whites. And those whites still maintain that sense of what you had to be when you joined the precinct. In order to be a police officer in Miami, before the blacks came on and even after, you had to be a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And so that's something that is rarely talked about, but it was the way that they were able to maintain segregation and maintain order in black and brown communities. So it changed the scope of things with this precinct being the only one in the nation. And if you guys want to really get something, just the beginning of April, PBS did a special on the museum. And so I'll share that link. Yeah, you can go to PBS. Samantha Brown shared an exciting tour of Miami. And one of those tour spots was an actual stop here at the museum with Lieutenant Archie McKay. We're fortunate enough to have at least 6 living beings that actually served as police officers in this precinct. They're still alive, and we're capturing their stories. So, yeah.
Great. And what about some of your community programs that you offer to the residents in the city of Miami?
Yeah. So we like for residents to always come in. We really appreciate it when residents come in and take the tour. One, because it gives them an open eye view on Miami's history and the impact of blacks. There would be no Miami Charter if it wasn't for black men, black Bahamian men, and a lot of people don't know that. And so this is a response to that. But we do offer filming. So we're really big on filming. So persons that want to film, for a movie. Some of your viewers might remember Kodak Black. He's a rapper, and he shot one of his films right upstairs in the courtroom. So if you saw that courtroom, you were like, hey, I've seen that before. Yeah, so filming is a big thing. We host what is called family and fun nights. And it's really where we invite through our Girl Scouts. So we have an actual Girl Scout troop here, that's actually serves out of here, Girl Scout Troop 1877. And they have family and friends night where they have movie night, or you get to come to the museum and you get to pick an item to discuss, to learn about. And then we offer through the officers, so all of the docents here at the museum, I'm the only civilian. So all the docents are actually officers. They're on retired, or they are what they call on reserve officers. So they offer what is called, what do you do when you get stopped by the police? So basic questions as to how police respond to you and how you should respond to police when you are interacting with each other. So, and hopefully we can further that program so that we can start to embed some harder conversations about community policing. So you mentioned how the officers did not have the right to a car at first. They had to use a bike. Well, that bike we have, so you get to see what that looks like. It's right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So I shouldn't be showing you guys all the little tricks because I really want y'all to come in. But since we're doing such a virtual fun time, you know, that bike is a really good example of what you see today. Like if you think about how we transport and how as kids we used to sit on the handlebars. So
Right.
that's how they used to do those suspects. I won't call them criminals. I get call them criminals. They're suspects, but they would have to put them on those handlebars and drive them in to the precinct, or they would hack down a ride from a resident. And so because they were only allowed to patrol the Negro district, most of them also lived in the Negro district. So there was not very many places that um, even if you decide to jump off that bike. But there was another level of community policing that we have been trying to highlight, and how we can really address the community issues and concerns around policing today. So this is relevant. So that's why I love it so much, because we're a relevant conversation. It's a museum, but it's not a dead museum. It's really about factual and using public history. So that's what we are.
Okay. So I'm gonna let our viewers. I know a few people joined while you were talking. Uh, please share any information. And I'm speaking to the viewers. If you've been to the museum, if you want to type in how you enjoyed it, what was your experience, or if you have a question for Terrence, since we have him on, um, you could go ahead.
Yeah. Or if you know a family member that you think might have been jailed here, we are asking for that. We're looking for more stories about family members that have worked as police officers. Back that time, you didn't have to go to an academy. So there were a lot of, people who came back from World War II who would just come down and either work on the railroad and ended up becoming police officers for that, or jailers, for that amount of time. So because we were a really hot spot, remember, this was entertainment. This was party town. This was like the Hollywood of the South, so there was a lot of crime that was happening here. And I say there was a lot of push on moonshine too. So a lot of people were enjoying that. So yeah, if you know anything, we are still helping and taking stories, and we're collecting what we call oral history. So we're doing interviews. They were supposed to start this summer. So hopefully interviews of people who remember the museum or the precinct when it was actual functioning, because they're still alive. 1944 is when the police came on board. 1950 is when this building was erected. So that's not a lot of time, and we still have family, that are still alive that can speak to it.
I see a question. Why was it important for Blacks to police themselves?
Very good question. So I would say that one of the biggest reasons why that was important was because prior to the first five coming on board, which, by the way, the first five was actually the first official trained, even though they weren't academy trained. They were the first class before there was ever even all 13 white class. So before that time, blacks were dying. They were getting murdered. They were getting killed. They were never making it to court. So that was a big push for Dr. Iris Davis, Father Comer, and Captain Scott. So those three, along with, Gibson and Barron, Father Barron, a lot of them still push that conversation. So that was one reason, because there was just not great agency for blacks before the first five came on. The other was, what better way to understand a culture of people but the people themselves, right? We talk about diversity and the importance of understanding diversity. You got to understand the culture. And so, like blacks, we like to talk with our hands. We get loud, and if you're an officer and you don't understand that culture, you're going to take that as being, defiant. You're going to take that the wrong way. You're not going to so you're going to react in a manner where you could be, really desensitizing that situation. And so that really was the other epidemic, that we were experiencing. As a result of that, even the white chief or the white supervisor could not deny that they saw a reduction in crime within the brown community or Negro community up to 200%. So you saw a lot more lives being saved. Now, granted, crime still occurred. And you did have blacks killing blacks, because why? They were patrolling black communities. So it wasn't a black on black crime because they were just going out to target blacks, but they were actually only patrolling blacks. They only lived around black people. So you couldn't expect them to kill a red person if they only live around black people. So those are the reasons why it was very important.
There's another question about their training. When did they train? What time and why?
So they received training, which is OJT, on the job training. And let me add, most of them had military background. Remember, this was after World War II. So many of them already had some type of military background. Now, they did have side gigs like, landscaping and stuff like that, and teaching before they actually became officers. But they had some training, but they didn't have any formal training. They actually trained out of Dr. Iris's office, right? And they trained at night. And the reason why it was at night or in the evening to night was because, one, they still didn't make an announcement that these emergency patrolmen were on board. And they didn't want to uproot the white concept about you giving these black officers authority or giving these black men authority. And then the honest is that there was still some hesitation within the brown community. There were a lot of brown people that were still like, yo, you're a sellout. Yo, why should we trust you? I mean, that back end conversation, like when you talk to those officers that were around, yes, there was some appreciation, but there was also some hesitation and some reservation. And that came with great responsibility because, remember, these were Ku Klux Klan. And so they were supervisors, and they would forcefully require these black officers to go into black establishments and shake these people down. That was against the law. And so they would shake them down. They would take all their goods, all their products. They would cut deals with them. These are black officers I'm talking about. They would cut deals with them. They would do all of this. And they would then, once they got to court, it was Judge Lawson that would throw out all of those cases. But by that time, they had already confiscated guns, paraphernalia, and things like that for that time. So there was still some, a lot of the officers, when I talk to them and I interview them, a lot of those officers that were still on the force, there was still some requirement to follow that Jim Crow practice of even though they were following a law, they still were forced to, if they want to keep their job and if they didn't want to get caught up, they had to follow the practice. So
Okay. Um, so before we go, tell us, how can our viewers contact you, your contact information, your website, because we can't, we have to stay home and until it's safe to leave our homes. What can they
Yeah.
do in the meantime? How can they find you on
So
your online?
unfortunately, I'm on my personal. So that vessel up there is my personal. So guys, please don't go there thinking you're going to tag the museum. I was on my personal IG when it came through. But we do have an IG. It's called Historical Black Precinct. And I don't know if you can pin this. Let me see if I can put a historical black. If I pin it there, maybe you can pin it. But if you go to historicalblackprecinct.org, and maybe if I should do that, right? Historicalblackprecinct.org. Um, you can find us. You can find us there. Our website now has the alert because we're closed, but it'll eventually come back up. You can also find us on IG there. So we're also on IG. Also, if you're a person who loves to go to travel TripAdvisor, we are doing heavy information on TripAdvisor. So you can also go to TripAdvisor and find us from TripAdvisor. Again, we are the only one in the nation. So if you just put in Black Police Museum, or Black Police Precinct Courthouse Museum, or Black Police Museum in Miami, you'll be able to find us and locate us.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us
You did a great
today.
job.
Thank you with your help. We, on behalf of the Black Archives and myself, we definitely appreciate you contributing to today in Black history.
Yes.
And tomorrow, please come back. And I'm speaking to our viewers. Please come back. Um, Tomorrow will be Jeopardy Noir with Timothy Barber at 2 p.m. And this is a fun time, a fun trivia game of questions, answers about Black history. So we won't keep you any longer. But again, thank you so much for everyone who joined in. And I'll see you next week at 11 a.m. Take care.